Welcome to the Rob Bro Show. I am Rob Bro. I am the host. You are the co-host. You can co-host today by commenting on the Starting Line chat line. The Starting Line chat line brought to you by Starting Line Counseling. Chase is a two-time Texas Tech graduate. We got some more news for him. He'll be on the show March 8th.
Let's go.
To talk a little indoor-outdoor track and what's going on. A couple of football players are getting to – I don't know if they've gotten to a podium yet, but they certainly are getting to finals. Texas Tech well-ranked in the track world.
Yes, both men's and women's.
We also might have some Olympic questions. It's an Olympic year. A little early for Olympic years, but I don't know the timeline on that. I know it starts in June or July, but there's got to be qualifying going on already.
It's not too early for Olympic years then.
Well, surely we can at least say, hey, what Red Raiders might be running in the Olympics.
Yeah, there you go.
Why is he qualified? Well, he was also an athlete at Texas Tech and is still plugged into the track world. He was a cross-country runner, long distance
track.
Yeah. So he's in the mix. He knows some people. He knows some things.
He knows the ins and outs. The coaching staff's still pretty much the same as it was when he was there.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, there hadn't been a whole lot of change to the West Kinley staff.
Sure. All right. Yeah. Let's talk a little basketball, baseball. What ball do you want to start with first here, Carson?
Let's start with baseball first.
Okay. 2 baseball games since we last spoke on Monday. Shellacking of UTA and a shellacking by Oregon State.
Yes.
The only thing I can say about these 2 games, really, besides some individual performances, this is college baseball.
Especially in the midweek.
Sometime your team's going to give up too many free passes. Sometimes the other team's going to give up too many free passes. You have to either get around them or capitalize on them. You capitalized on them one day and you didn't get around them the next day. And that's pretty as easy as it can be. Now, you labeled it a midweek, but I will say you had Derek Bridges and Josh Sanders and Brendan Lysick and guys you need to rely on doing the free passing against Oregon State. Maybe not Josh Sanders. I think he had a good afternoon, but Derek Bridges and Brendan Lysick maybe giving up some free passes. And then, the freshman came in with the bases loaded and gave up the double. Tough luck. But look, you've played 2 top 10 teams. You've lost to 2 top 10 teams. Maybe you're just a top 11 team right now. And you need to be a little further into the Big 12 before you lock in your top 10-ness.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't read a lot into the fact that you lost to Tennessee, and that was a close game for a little while. And then Tennessee's bats just showed through. You didn't pitch well at the end of that game, which allowed them to get a bigger lead on you and win the ball game. Oregon State, same kind of thing. You pitched well to start. You stayed with them for a bit, and then you didn't pitch well, and Oregon State did. Just like Tennessee pitched really well against you. You saw their top 2 arms on that Friday night in Arlington. So, yeah, I mean, neither of these 2 losses are going to hurt you. The RPI-wise, both of these 2 teams are going to finish in the top of their conference. If Oregon State's not one of the top, 4 national seeds by the end of the year, I'd be really surprised. They're a very loaded ball club.
Yeah.
They'll win the Pac-12.
Neutral site. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, they will be a top 8 host national seed moving into the tournament this year. I firmly believe that, even though I've only watched them, once or twice already this year. So, yeah, it's not a bad loss. Tennessee's going to be a good ball club. They're probably one of those teams that early on in the season look like they can possibly be a regional host, even though they lost to Oklahoma in the early going. Oklahoma's not going to be a bad team either. So, yeah, it's for Texas Tech baseball. Pretty excited about what you saw, especially from some of your freshmen in the lineup, like a TJ Pompey. I thought, we talked about it on Monday. I think he's just going to be so freaking good. It's not even close. to being like that you think he's not going to play a ton as a true freshman. I think he's going to be your starting shortstop throughout the year. Bazell and Cash got going on the last couple of days, so you
Got a
like
home
to
run.
see that. That's nice. Yeah, I like how this team stacks up. I like where they're headed towards. They just got to get continuity on the mound, on the bump, and that's really what you've seen all of last year. Whenever they struggled a little bit, they just didn't pitch well. And then getting in the regional last year, they pitched very well up until the last couple games against Florida. So. Yeah, that's where it comes down to, and that's what we talked about in the previews this year. Is you got a ton of arms. Now you've got to find the ones that can get the job done for you, and that's what the beginning of the season is. And listen, you got two, weekend series coming up here against Texas Southern, and I can't remember who's after that, but it's two weekend series that are very winnable and very sweepable series that you should get the job done and be able to see a bunch of arms get thrown out. There's Gardner Webb after Texas Southern. So two very good series to have at home to get things loaded back towards. And then you have New Mexico, and then you start Texas in conference play at home on the same weekend that you host them in the USA for basketball too. So it's going to be a fun weekend on the South Plains then. But I think Tech baseball will get a lot of things figured out in the next 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, and you add 3 or 4 baseball series. You start 3 or 4 weeks earlier. It's pretty crazy. You don't have much of a non-con. Lupton Drinking Club here for assistance if needed. Happy baseball season, fellows. Hello to Brian as well. I don't know who you are, but welcome in. Maybe we mentioned Olympics and Brian came coming. And then again, thanks for starting with baseball so I can tune out for basketball. That's a TCU fan there. I want to say something about TCU baseball. They're 4-0. One of the 2 undefeated teams in the Big 12, Houston and TCU. But Florida Gulf Coast gave away everything they could handle at home.
Yeah, Florida Gulf Coast was there to win a couple games.
They did.
I mean,
yeah. Florida Gulf Coast at one point was up 9-0, maybe.
9-1. I thought, 9-1.
Yeah, 9-1. TCU came all the way back in the 8th inning. Incredible game. Bunch of home runs, a bunch of extra base hits. TCU, they're good, but it might be a little bit like last year. They're going to have to figure out that bullpen for a while before they really get locked in. And they did get locked in last year as well, but we'll see. Breaking in some new players. Defense has been poor, fixable. Yeah, that sounds a little bit like last year too. You have everything you need, but defensively a little shaky. And then, but hey, 4-0 is 4-0. You don't really have to complain about a 4-0 start.
Well, and Florida Gulf Coast isn't exactly a pushover either. So they're a team that will compete for a regional spot, win their conference. So in today's day and age, the parity in college baseball, we talked about this the other day with the way that the Major League Baseball draft is, a ton of guys aren't going to the pro level out of high school anymore. And so now you're getting a bunch of these guys that might have gone to a bigger Power 5 school. Now the Stetsons, the Florida Gulf Coasts, we're seeing a bunch of these medium tier teams that are getting really, really nice talent, especially in their own backyards. I mean, Florida is a great place to recruit in football and in baseball. So much like Texas is. So Florida Gulf Coast, not a pushover that TCU threw on the schedule in week 1. So, and the thing about the difference between those teams and a TCU is that they're probably not as deep pitching wise as you go later in the bullpens. But their offense is, every single one of those dudes can swing it. I mean, you go to University of South Alabama, Louisiana Lafayette, who we know is always good, regional host years and years. So yeah, the mid majors, you can't shy away. I mean, San Diego tried to take a series from Texas as well this last weekend. So, and then San Diego won the Battle of San Diego last night against UC San Diego in a walk-off. So some good baseball teams out there in the mid majors, and kudos to TCU for getting a sweep. It's tough to do in a 4-game set. It just really is.
TCU goes to host UCLA. and then we'll host Washington State and Arizona in I guess at home still, and then go to Arlington. There it is. Go to Arlington and face USC, Arizona State, and USC in a weekend series before they
That's
start.
a good series for them.
Before they start with Kansas on March 8th. So that's what TCU's doing. I did misspeak earlier too. UCF is still undefeated, but they've only played 2 games.
Yeah.
They had
John Rice Plumlee.
some rain delays there with Bryant. But they beat Miami in Miami.
Miami's going to be a little shaky this year. First year head coach at Miami, so we'll see how the Hurricanes are, but especially in the ACC, which is a tough baseball conference.
Let's see. BYU 1-3, Baylor 1-3, Cincinnati 1-2, West Virginia 2-2. A little surprising there on West Virginia.
Who did West Virginia have last weekend?
Stetson.
Stetson again. The Mad Hatters are a team that I said, and they're a team that's been in the regionals and super regionals a couple of years ago. So you want the best player from Stetson that's probably ever played at Stetson is
who?
Pitcher for the Rangers. Well, hopefully he pitches some this year.
Oh, really? I should know this. I don't know.
Jacob deGrom.
Oh, he went to Stetson. I did not know that.
Yeah, pretty sure that's the correct.
How long have you guys been hosting this show? Since last April.
Since we were in 7th grade, really. But yeah,
well,
we'll go with that. Yeah, deGrom played at Stetson. I knew I was.
This particular show since last May, I guess, is what it was.
Yeah. It's like the 4th reiteration of the show.
Yeah, we keep coming back from the dead. Off and on since 2016.
Sounds right.
UCF is undefeated. Yeah, UCF. I forgot about UCF. Well, we'll forget about UCF quite a bit, I think, in this this go around. Oh man, sorry to UCF. All right, that's some baseball talk. Let's talk about a little basketball too. If you want to check out Lupton Drinking Club or stay in, I don't care. TCU should have won that game. They should have won down the stretch. They should have taken care of business. But all of a sudden, you get some action here. At the end of the game, Pop Isaac starts going to the rack. You keep going to the rack with Joe Toussaint. You get some free throws. Jamie Dixon's big old feet stay off the court. Now, you had some terrible possessions. The last 2 possessions, they were dominating the full court press there. But somehow you come out with a win. Incredible. Just incredible. I don't know. You won by 1.
I don't know how you won, to be honest with you. Without Warren Washington, which was big, Robert Jennings did not play well at all. In dispose of when Warren Washington was in dispose. But Robert Jennings didn't play well. Who did play well as a big man that had to play well? Kyron Lindsey came in and gave you big-time minutes. He ends up playing 23 minutes in the ball game. Kyron Lindsey was a big reason of why you won this basketball game, especially that play he makes late in the second half with the layup where he brings the arm out way out here and gets a lay-in to go. That's a tough shot for those that aren't familiar with the game, especially against a guy that's a lot bigger than you. I thought Kyron Lindsey was really a difference in the ball game. You shot it really, really poorly from 3. Of course, both teams really did shoot it really poorly from 3. Texas Tech was 6 of 22. TCU is 5 of 20 or something like that. So you weren't great from 3, and Pop Isaacs realized that, and he started dribble driving, like you said, making things happen off the dribble instead of trying to make things happen from deep. I think that was a big turnaround in this game, and they locked down on the defensive end when they needed to get big stops. They went down by 10 or 11 with 5 minutes left, and you're thinking, man, This is where the wheels kind of fall off. The depth starts to shine through for TCU, and Texas Tech just doesn't have the dudes tonight to hang with this team. And then Tech gets a couple turnovers. They knock down a big shot. I think it was Darian Williams that gets an and one put back on a bucket. And so those are big things that Texas Tech was able to weather a storm and come out and win a game. I don't care what it looks like, right? We've talked about this all season long, is for any Big 12 team, I don't care what team it is, a win in the Big 12 is always pretty much a tier 1 win unless you're playing the bottom 3. And any win is a good win, right? Especially at home. You've got to be able to hold serve at home, which you haven't done all year. You lost to Cincinnati, so now you've had to, go on the road and catch a couple, which Texas Tech has been able to do that a couple times this year. So it was a huge win. It can't be understated how big of a win that is, because I truly think TCU is was the better basketball team on Tuesday night. Were they the tougher team? No, obviously not, because Texas Tech was able to come back from 10 down and figure out a way to win.
Certainly without Warren Washington, they were the better team.
Right. That's exactly what I mean. On paper, they were the better team, especially when the ball tipped off. You're thinking, well, TCU's going to win tonight because Texas Tech doesn't have their big guy. And with as long and strong as TCU is, I mean, Mustafa had a great game. I thought he played 16 minutes, but he really affected the game while he was in there. For TCU, he had 10 off the bench. Coles had 10 off the bench, and that's two guys that are bigger than your center that you played the other night. And I know there's really technically not a true center on this Texas Tech team besides Warren Washington, but just everybody that TCU threw out there, even on the bench wise, Mustafa and Coles and O'Bannon, and I mean, you just go down the list, Cork and Miller, those guys are all bigger than everybody you put out there. And so for Texas Tech to be able to weather that, to be able to not just get totally blown out on the boards, even though it was 49-36, which you figured it would be, TCU was going to out-rebound you. You made big plays when you needed to make them, and that's all that matters. Texas Tech ends up winning, and there's not a whole lot you can say or be upset about if you're a Texas Tech fan. Really, as a TCU fan, you can be upset a little bit because you dropped a 10-point lead pretty late in the ball game. But again, it's tough to win on the road in the Big 12. And it's just not something that comes easy. It doesn't matter what the mismatch is, where, all those things that happen in Lubbock on Tuesday. So kudos to Texas Tech. I mean, you can't say enough about what the coaching staff has instilled in this team that's so different from what we saw early on in the year, right? Like against Butler, against Villanova in the Bahamas. The Butler game would be completely different if you're playing them right now versus 2-3 months ago. So, and for Villanova and Butler, the Texas Tech win is becoming bigger and bigger for them. It's actually improving their tournament resume that Texas Tech continues to do what they're doing in the Big 12. So, and Butler and Villanova played each other the other night in the Big East. So, Texas Tech, kudos to the Red Raiders for getting a big win. And that's a big win because now you're one win away basically from, and not basically, you're one win away literally from assuring yourself a 500 record or better in the Big 12 this year. And I don't know that anybody really saw that coming from this team in year one with Grant McCasland, to be honest with you, especially without Devin Cambridge.
And Warren Washington for
and Warren Washington for 3 or 4 Big 12 games. Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right.
Let's see. I was trying to look at the basketball standings here. If it will go to them. Anyways. Man, the Big 12 website is so good. So great.
Yeah, it's not good at all.
You're tied in 4th, but ahead of Kansas because you beat them head up. Or I guess you're tied in 3rd behind a team and in front of a team.
Yeah.
Behind Baylor in front of Kansas.
In front of Kansas, yeah.
So technically, I think you're listed as 5th in the standings because of rankings. Kansas is at third, but you'll flip those and sneak Baylor in front of you. Baylor is technically up there. Now you're in sole possession of fourth place.
Yeah, if the season ended today, you'd be the 4 seed in the Big 12 tournament.
In the tiebreakers.
Yeah.
But you're 8-5 in Big 12 play. Fairly incredible. I'm going to say it. Fairly incredible. I certainly thought that Texas Tech could be near 500. But if you told me there was an 8 in a column and a 5 in a column, I would have told
I would have said 5 and 8.
5 and 8, fighting for a couple of wins here down the stretch.
Yeah.
I would have told you that at this point early in the season, before the season. Of course, I didn't know anything about this roster except for the guys that were returning. I think Darian Williams has been way better than I expected, in my opinion.
Especially as a sophomore after, obviously he was the freshman of the year in the Mountain West last year, but that's a big jump from the Mountain West to the best conference in the country. And what was he going to be like week in and week out? Darian Williams has just gotten better as Big 12 play has improved, has gone on.
Yeah. And you also have, a couple of guys who haven't been as advanced as you thought. Lamar Washington.
Yeah.
It's basically been written out of the will at this point. Robert Jennings, I thought would take a big step. Hasn't really taken a big step. Has gotten a lot of opportunity in Warren Washington's wake, but just hasn't been elite. Now, Kyron Lindsey also hasn't been getting a lot of run, but looked great against TCU in stretches. There were still some defensive issues, I thought, early in the game.
Very.
But TCU is bigger than you, but they're also missing a couple of starters there.
Yeah, they were missing one guy at the very least.
Yeah.
So, look, I think at this rate in the season, there's a lot of teams in the Big 12 that aren't fully healthy. Maybe Houston is the only fully healthy team that's not missing any of their big-time guys. And that's why they're at the top of the conference. I also think that Houston is the best team in the Big 12 conference this year, just by watching everything. At the very beginning of the season, I thought Kansas was just the way they played, but they don't really have a true, Hunter Dickinson has not been that true big man that Kansas normally has. They can just take over a game and influence everything else that goes on the court. But Houston is so athletic. Jamal Shed, he runs that thing like it's a Rolls Royce. And Kelvin Sampson's one of the best head coaches in college basketball, and he really has been everywhere he's ever gone.
Did you watch?
I don't care how much he's cheated.
Did you watch Houston, Iowa State?
Yeah, little bits and pieces.
Well, what Kelvin Sampson did at Oklahoma and Indiana is not cheating anymore, yeah?
Right, yeah, it's not cheating anymore. That's what I mean.
He can pay the players as much as he wants.
Yeah, that's why I don't care. I never really cared.
I'll say this. That Houston-Iowa State game proved some things to me. A, the home team is always going to be the better team in the Big 12.
Yeah.
But I think it also proved that Iowa State's just as good as Houston. And I would love to see those two teams play a best of 7. I think that would be really awesome. I do. Brian, who's your team? You say your team's doing great right now. Who is it?
I think he said he went to UCF, so I would assume that's his team. I don't know.
Well, UCF is doing all right. AT&T is down, but the Rob Bro Show with Carson.
See, my phone's been working today, so I don't know what everybody's saying about AT&T is down.
Well, I'm not AT&T, so that must be why.
I'm on the old AT&T, but I don't know. Internet's working.
Just
Phone's working.
Just got a text. Do you have any more basketball thoughts? I have a MLB thought here.
Not really, other than this conference is just stupid good. It's just fun to watch. I don't care who it is. Whenever the Big 12's on, I'm watching the game. I don't care who's playing. It's just fun to watch people play in this conference, man.
All right. This is one more thing I want to do. TCU right behind you now at 7-6. They've got Cincinnati at home, Baylor at home, at BYU, at West Virginia, UCF at home. I think you can keep pace there. That's a pretty good schedule, though. At West Virginia, nothing to snooze at.
No.
At BYU, nothing to snooze at.
Right.
Cincinnati at home, I think they've lost a little bit of their luster that they had in the middle of the year. But Baylor at home, good place to get them. You get them at home as well. And then UCF at home is much better than getting them in Orlando, which you have to go to Orlando in the last 5.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talked about Morgantown. I mean, West Virginia's only 4 conference wins have come in Morgantown. So it's tough to win in those country roads.
It is.
And that's Brian, the only place West Virginia.
His track team. What do you run? What do you run, Brian?
Oh, there you go.
All right, Carson. Let's see this. I was going to talk about Tech's final schedule, but we'll preview that in a second. Let's see. Tim Anderson is heading to Miami in free agency. What would you assume that contract is?
For Tim Anderson?
Yeah, Tim Anderson, let's say a year and a half, 2 years ago, looked like his stock was on the rise.
On the rise, yeah. Last year he had a bad year.
He did, and was punching people.
Yeah. Man, how many years? Can you give me how many years it is, and then I'll tell you what it's
part of the surprise.
Okay.
1 year. 1 year.
1 year deal. Okay, so he was a unrestricted free agent this past year too, and so he's just now signing with the team. So he's probably 1 year, 8 to 10 million, somewhere in there.
5.
Oh, wow.
He's getting utility money.
Wow. Yeah, I thought his history of being a pretty good shortstop would.
He had a 582 OPS and a -2 WAR last year.
Oof. He was not good last year.
I did not realize.
Neither were the White Sox.
How bad he was. I also have a Josh Young update. 5 days after injuring his calf, Josh Young is encouraged by his progress. Will he be ready for opening day? That's from Mike Ducey.
I think he'll be ready for opening day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, opening day is still a month and a week or 2 away, right? Yeah. When's opening day? Late March, early April?
Late March, I believe. Do you play the Ultimate Roster daily fantasy game?
No.
This is
not anymore.
Oh, I love that game. It's free. You just they give you a prompt and you have to list the names. All right. Final thoughts on this weekend, since we won't be back tomorrow. This is the final show of the week, or at least Carson's final show of the week. I might do another one tomorrow. Texas Tech basketball in Orlando. I forgot to look.
At UCF. Yeah.
At UCF, you had to storm back and get the big lead at the end of the last game at home, but it was really, really close the entire game. Warren Washington was allegedly playing on Tuesday until mid-afternoon, and they decided not to play him. So I would assume he plays at Orlando, or maybe they take.
I hope he plays.
Maybe they take one more game and just give the floor to Kyron Lindsey. We'll see. But Warren Washington or not, what do you think about? Let's say no Warren Washington. What's your game score? Warren Washington. What's your game score?
No Warren Washington. I hate this. UCF has not been playing well.
Better at home.
They're 1-4 in their last 5. Of course, they've only played 2 of those at home, and they're 1-1. They lost to Cincinnati by 2 at home. UCF at home's tough. Let's go UCF without Warren Washington. 78, Texas Tech 72. With Warren Washington, you can probably flip-flop that, to be honest with you.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, Texas Tech, maybe I'll change up 76, UCF 71. But it's pretty much.
I was going to say either you win by 5 or lose by 5. I think Warren
yeah.
Washington, he's probably not a full 10 points, but
no, not on the road.
I think things change, and either win by a couple or lose by. Let's say that win by 3, lose by 3. I think Warren Washington's good enough for 6 points on the road.
I agree.
Probably not on a betting line, but in functional basketball, I think he can get you a couple of more rebounds that save extra possessions.
I will almost bet you that Texas Tech, well, of course, according to the matchup predictor, UCF is a 51.5% favorite on ESPN.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that UCF will be the favorite. If they are the favorite, it'll be like minus 2.5, 2 and a hook, 3 and a hook.
According to, I don't know if it was T-Rank or Ken Palm, Texas Tech was going to be favored in the rest of the games, but I think that was considering Warren Washington was going to bounce back. So I don't know. I don't know if you'll be favored or not, since the matchup predictor is leaning that way.
Right. Yeah, I think UCF will get like 3 and a hook.
I think it'll be 2 and a hook. I think it'll be less than 3, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be bet toward Texas Tech. It'll probably close.
That's a fact.
It'll close even or Texas Tech minus a half a point.
I wouldn't touch it. Let's put it that way.
No, I wouldn't either. I don't bet Big 12 basketball.
No, it's like betting on the NFL. You know, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they're so locked in.
Yeah.
All right, Texas Southern sweep.
Yes.
Needed or want
it? Both.
Yeah, I think both.
I mean, you can't lose a game to Texas Southern at home.
You don't have enough non-con to lose non-con games.
Especially to Texas Southern.
Beyond the neutral site, top 10 games.
Yeah. Even though I think Texas Southern was the regional team out of the SWAC last year.
I think you're right, but at home, you should be able to beat Texas Southern 3 times.
Yes. Yeah, and it shouldn't be a struggle to win 3 games at home either.
I wanted to mention Jacob Rogers, who pitched against Tennessee and then started against Oregon State. That's 2 big moments for the true sophomore. That guy is an elite college pitcher in the first and second innings. He has not been good. Whether he's a starter and it's going through the second time of the order or in relief. But that guy is so good in the first and second innings. Do you think that Tim Tadlock will use him as an opener and just never go into this? Hey, you get the first time through the order, and this is our real starter coming in next.
Like do a Duchetter kind of deal?
Yeah. Except Duchek didn't have a leash.
Right. He just come out after 4 or 5 innings. And then Ryan Cheddar could clean it up. Yeah, I think you could see that happen this year with an opener. Especially because that would open him up to being able to maybe throw an inning on a Friday in relief and then come back and start the game on a Sunday and throw 2 innings. And obviously at the most it would be 3 innings one time through the lineup. So, yeah, I think you could see that for sure. I think the way that baseball has gone now, and I think Tim Tadlock has gone a little bit of the analytical route too, because, back in the way that the old school way that Tim would coach is he would bunt guys over and do those things. And now Texas Tech doesn't do those things because it says in the analytics that bunting doesn't do you any good in certain situations. So I think that you could see that some of that new age thinking is coming into the Texas Tech staff. We'll see what Coach Gardner and Tadlock want to do, but it wouldn't surprise me if you saw a situation. So is that, and then you bring in a guy like Brendan Lysick or somebody else, go righty lefty and kind of change it up on people. But we'll see what it looks like. I think you'll get a really good taste of what your weekend guys will look like, especially against Gardner Webb next week, not this weekend, but the next weekend. because that's your final weekend prep before you face Texas at home. So,
which is still crazy.
It's crazy, right? Even though LCU baseball plays conference series from day one, like they don't get a they don't get a non-conference series. LCU baseball starts in conference every single year now in the Lone Star Conference, and it's not easy because that's the best conference in Division II college baseball is the Lone Star Conference. The defending national champs, Angelo State, come from that conference. So, LCU doesn't feel bad about Texas Tech only getting really 3 non-conference series if you can count the 3 different teams series last weekend.
LCU gets 1 weekend, I think, of non-con.
Yeah, 1 weekend during spring break they go to Regis in Denver. So that's the only week. That's the only 2 non-conference games they play all season long. 2 non-conference games. That's it. And the reason they play that is because Regis is in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, which is in the region that LCU is in D2. And D2 goes, postseason wise, you're stacked up by your regional rankings, not your conference rankings, which it helps to be very good in conference. But
by the way, you mentioned UCF. You said they were 1-4 in their last 5. They're 0-4 in their last 4. But that's a 7-point loss at Texas Tech, a 2-point loss, 90-88 at BYU.
Tough place to play.
They lost by 2 to Cincinnati at home, and then by 10 at West Virginia. So, I mean, they're competitive. They're being competitive at West Virginia. Is just a pit, man. I'm worried about going to West Virginia as a Texas Tech fan. I don't know that. I don't know that you can win down there. All right,
it's never really boded well for you at West Virginia either as a Texas Tech fan, except for in 2019.
I think you've won once, right?
Yeah, I think that was the year. 2019, you won at West Virginia and at Iowa State.
And you were dancing in the locker room and Huggins was mad.
Yes.
All right.
Correct.
I think that's all I have. Do you have anything else? Any other tidbits?
No, that's it. It's the best time of the year, really. You got basketball, baseball started up, especially college baseball. It's one of the fastest growing sports in the country right now. So it's exciting times, especially if you're a baseball fan and a basketball fan. And then you'll have spring football coming up here in a couple weeks, and then you'll have all 3 sports working at the same time.
By the way, sorry, one more thing. Have you been watching spring training videos?
Not really, no.
Wyatt Langford.
He's so good.
He's going to be your opening day DH. If not in the field somehow.
Adolis could DH.
Yeah. Of course, Adolis is a good outfielder.
Yeah, true.
Evan Carter.
You have a litany of good outfielders right now.
Yeah, with Leody Taveras, you have 4 starting outfielders there with Evan Carter. Man. I'm excited for baseball season.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to mash. You're going to have to mash. You're going to have to keep up with the pitching. You'll be fine.
And stay healthy. Staying healthy would be great. Especially for a guy like a Josh Young who hasn't made it through a full season in pro ball yet. Too bad he can't be a rookie again.
Knock on wood somewhere. All right. So not next Friday, but the Friday after, we'll have some track talk with Chase Wade, the sponsor of the program. But beyond that, we'll have a couple of weeks of Big 12 basketball and more. I think March 8th might be the wrapping up the basketball season too. That'll be a big show.
Yeah, I think you're looking at we'll be looking at the Big 12 tournament by then. Yeah.
Sweet. Lady Raiders almost won in Austin last night, but didn't.
Almost stole one, man. That would have been big for them too because they've been struggling a little bit. March 9th. March 9th is the last basketball game. Tech hosts Baylor. So
yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
All right.
Baylor lost on the road last night at BYU.
Yep, they did.
Or Tuesday night.
Yeah. Monday? Tuesday?
It was Tuesday.
This week. All right. Lady Raiders, man. Tough road.
They'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. I think Chris is the right one. Chris is the right one for it.
There's been more and more conversation, especially I think with Gas's hot
early
start.
success.
Yeah. And quite frankly, West Virginia women's success in year one, year two with that head coach.
Yeah.
He's gotten it off quickly. I mean, they're ranked, and
I think, but West Virginia over the last 2 years in the women's game has had a good, solid team. They've had an NCAA tournament team, and for McCaslin here on the men's side at Texas Tech too, he came in and inherited a program that was in a pretty good spot. I mean, minus last year with all the fiasco that went on behind the scenes with Mark Adams, but before that, Chris Beard had this program at the top, the pinnacle of the sport. So. McCaslin inherited a program that's very well known, and Krista Gerlich inherited a program that had been very well known to be struggling since 1995. So, it's not an easy job that she took over. It's going to take a few years, and the women's game hasn't gotten to where the men's game has either, with the parity in the game and all of those things either. So, but it's getting there. It's getting there.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite certainly still a hierarchy in the women's game, not like the men's game. It can be different every year, but you're going to have the same top 5 teams in women's basketball every year.
The Pac-12, a couple of the women's teams that are coming over from the Pac-12, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, they're all ranked in the top 25. Yep. The Pac-12 is probably the best women's basketball conference in the country right now, other than the SEC.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
All right. Now that's all I have.
Yep.
We'll start looking at bracketology next week. I don't like to do it any earlier than that. I'm not Joe Lenardi.
Yeah, it's not March yet.
I will not look at Joe Lenardi. If anybody brings up Joe Lenardi bracket on this show, I will ban them. Hammer ban. We look at other bracketology.
We're always on that same page, Rob.
But not Joe Lenardi. He's a hack and a loser.
Yeah, he's a moron.
All right. See you next week.
Peace.